Hi, welcome back to Cheyenne, Wyoming, Urban Gardener. This is Debbie, Gardening Zone 5A, 5B. And good morning to everybody. This is actually March 27th in the morning. And I know it probably won't be morning by the time you see this video, or it might even be the next day, because that's just the way it rolls sometimes around this house. We are getting ready to sell our house. April 9th is actually the final day that we're supposed to be putting this house on the market. But we're not really talking about that so much, but we don't really have a chosen realtor as yet. So we are allowed to talk about it until we get the realtor. And then state of Wyoming, you're not allowed to talk about it after that point, which is very strange. It looks like if it's your house, you should be able to talk about whatever the heck you want to talk about. Anyway, and it'll still be our house until it sells. So what I'm doing this morning is I'm just making myself a little tea. I'm going to put a little cream in that. I always put a little bit of cream in my tea, and I always make a big mug of tea. I just use the same type of tea bags, but just a larger mug. And I actually have decaffeinated tea. I try not to have caffeinated things if possible. That's just a little bit about myself that you probably didn't know. I have pretty much given up all soda or pop, depending on where you're at in the country. And I mostly drink tea, water, or sometimes some dairy products, not very often. And just like the drink packets, say like just something that's low sugar or something like that with no caffeine in it. And if you got to be careful when you get those drink packets these days, because they actually contain extra caffeine, a lot of them. And I'm not into that. Not anymore. So flavored waters are fine. I'm not really that fond of the carbonated waters because they just don't taste very good to me. They kind of taste like Perrier, and I'm not a Perrier fan. So anyway, that's what I'm doing, is just making myself some tea, and let's go around the house. And it's snowing today. It's the 27th of March. And it's snowing outside. We're going to go back and forth with that for a while, probably until mid-May, to be honest, even later than that. It is Wyoming, so that is a very, very much a possibility. We have a very short growing season. Basically, the first week of June is when we start really planting things outside in ground. And then we start having frost again by usually the first portion of September. So you get a very short growing season, so you have to get plants and things that you put in your garden that have a short season, and long day onions and things like that, just to make sure that they're ready by the time you get around to the point of frost hitting again. So let's go around the house a little bit. So even though it is snowing outside right now, we still have a little bit of sun, and you can see the remnants of the prior year's garden. And you can also see that we have done quite a bit of cleaning outside, other than cleaning up the rest of the garden. And that is because we're getting ready to put the house on the market. So we have gotten rid of our large compost pile. It's kind of sad that we had to do that, but it just wasn't breaking down properly. And we will have a different style of composting when we get to our new place, wherever that shall be. We still haven't chosen a place to be yet because we're still waiting to sell this house. And that's kind of the reality of how it stands, because this house is a larger home. It is a Victorian home. It has 30 rooms. So it's quite large, over 7,000 square feet. And that's not counting the attic, which is not counted as square footage in the house. So it's 4 levels. We have basement, we have the living level, and I can just show you, for instance, and that's my grandson right there, Bill. And you can see our kitchen is quite, I wouldn't say huge by any sense of the word, and it's a little messy right now because I've just now gotten downstairs and started cleaning everything. Usually I have to clean the house 3 or 4 times a day, honestly. We just have so much going on, especially lately. But you can see that the house had been updated. So we've got some really nice oak cabinets and stuff like that in here from Schroll Cabinets, stuff like that. So you can see all of our nice little, I wouldn't call them built-ins, but just kind of additions from where they renovated. And this was actually renovations before we got the house. So we've had a lot of workers in our house lately. We hired out a lot of contractors to come in and do some painting and do some maintenance, just general things in the house, get those back up to snuff and stuff like that. So then here's a kind of another little angle of the house in the kitchen. So you can see our cabinets are really tall. I can't even reach. You can see those upper cabinets up there. I can't reach those. So those aren't even really used. They're just kind of there for aesthetics at this point. So you can just kind of see all of our stuff that we have there. But that's how the kitchen looks. We're not really doing a whole tour or anything, but I'm just saying it's a Victorian house. So it's big and it's a nice house. And I would love to be able to take the house and move it to another property somewhere. But the reality is that the grounds outside are not very large. We don't have a whole lot of land that goes with the house because it is in downtown in Cheyenne. And then we have this large 4-car garage here and then a garden shed past that. So there's not a whole lot of land to go with the house. And I basically have been gardening, as you can see here. This really was not even really a garden area. It was just kind of a flower bed area. And it had 2 large lilac bushes, actually 3, that were along the back here. And I have taken those out because they were just so misshapen from the wind and things that happens here in Wyoming. And they were really, really old. So I would suspect that they were probably planted in the 30s or 40s or something. They were just really old. They were really tall. They went up over the top of the garage there. And they just bent back from where the wind would hit them. So I've taken those out. And you can probably see them in some of my prior videos, like back when I first started doing videos here. So if you look back in some of those videos, you might be able to see those lilac bushes. And they did bloom and everything, but they were in such bad shape that it didn't take very long once I started cutting them back for them to just really completely die off. So we took those out, and then we had that whole area there. And there's actually a large tree stump right in here where you can see my finger, where we had a cottonwood that had to be cut down. And the tree stump was left. And the tree stump is so large that it would take massive machinery to get it out of there. And so what I've let it do is just decompose in there. We had it basically ground down below the ground level. And then we just put soil on top of it. So we've let it decompose down. And most of it now has came out. There's only a small section of it left, like right in there. So most of it has decomposed down, and I've just keep pulling chunks of it out each time that we have a gardening season. We're actually going to do gardening here because we're not really sure right now when it's going to be that we get our new home and we get moved to the new property. So right now we're going to be gardening here, and it's a possibility if we get moved to the new property before June that we will actually have a garden in the new property as well, because we do have a large rototiller and things like that we can tackle that with. And even if we have to, we could hire a tractor to come in and plow up if we don't end up with a tractor ourselves. We're all contemplating all kinds of things that may happen in this next bit. So anyway, I had some sweet potatoes that were going, basically started sprouting and things like that. So they were starting to make slips. So I went ahead and just put those in some cups here sitting in the window. And they've actually already started taking roots. And this has only been 4 days or so that they've been sitting on the windowsill at this point. And they've already taken root. I've only have 4 of them right now. I've got a couple of more that I could put up here, but I don't have a whole lot of space for sweet potatoes, and they get quite massive. So, and I'm just recovering from being sick as well, so I do apologize about that. But I did go ahead and get them in cups, and we're going to get to see how many slips we can end up off of these. This one here is got a really good start, so I think we might get quite a few slips off of that one. Altogether, probably should end up with about 20 slips, maybe more from these. And if we do, I'll get those planted. I'm not real sure I'm going to do regular potatoes this season, just because of all of the turmoil going on with moving and stuff like that, I'm not real sure I want to invest the time and labor it takes to put in regular potatoes. And sweet potatoes we haven't done here yet, and I did an experiment last season with having a couple of slips that I had started, and they did take off and grow, but it was really late in the season, so I want to see if they will actually do anything here. And these are a Japanese variety of sweet potato. We've got 2 that are white on the inside, and then 2 that are the jewel sweet potatoes that have the orange on the inside. So I'm going to try those. They're a little bit more hardy, especially the Japanese variety, with being a little bit more of a cooler weather sweet potato. So we'll see if those really take off and if we get anything out of them. But I'm kind of suspecting that we will, considering all the roots that are going like crazy here. And they're in the window, so they're about at 70 degrees right now is what we keep it inside of the house. But of course, up against the window, it's going to be cooler. So I think they'll do fine. They look like they're doing just fine. So we'll see how those do. We've gotten our basil over here in our big basil container that we grow inside. We've gotten that replanted. I basically cut all of the basil that we had and took the roots out, and I've got it drying. And then we went ahead and replanted seeds. We've got cinnamon basil, dark opal basil, lemon drop basil, sweet basil, and Italian basil all in here. And you can see they are now starting to come up like crazy. I'd actually planted 3 of my grandson's little starts that he had. But unfortunately, it looked like that they just did not. We had started them in the window, and I don't think they liked being moved at all. But this one's still growing, but the other 2 had just decided, there's the remnants of that one. Just said, nope, we're not going to do it. So we went ahead and just planted the seeds, and they are coming up like crazy. So I think those are going to be just fine. I grow basil typically all winter long inside. And the basil that I had growing, if you remember in a couple of other videos that I've had, or you can go back and look in some of the previous videos, that basil was fully mature, was seeding, blooming, and all of that. So I look forward to this catching up. And then my rosemary has just suddenly started taking off like crazy. You can see all these new shoots on here, so I'll need to actually trim these back and let them start shooting out again. But it has just taken off like crazy. It knows that spring is coming, and this usually sits outside through the whole summer long. And this has been growing all winter long inside just fine. It just kind of was dormant, not really growing a whole lot. But it did grow a little bit, and I had cut it off and used it for chicken and stuff like that. And but this spring it has really started coming out and just shooting up like crazy, and it knows that it's close to springtime for us and just really wants to grow. So as soon as it starts getting warmer, we'll start carrying this guy outside during the day, and then during the night we'll bring it back in. And then by usually late May, it is able to stay out all night long just fine. And the same thing with our lavender. Our lavender has really started picking up and putting on new growth as well. It kind of was dormant throughout the winter time and has really started just coming out of it just in the last few days. Same thing with our mint. This is a chocolate mint, the original chocolate mint that I had. And you can see it in some of the previous videos. I've got some Bolivian Tradescantia kind of going into that, or some people do call it wandering Jew. But this is my chocolate mint. It had really just pretty much stayed dormant throughout the wintertime, but still was growing. And it just really has started taking off and just draping down and all kinds of stuff. And we've got a little bit of some age on it, so you can start seeing some little spots and things on it when it gets age. And basically what you do with that is when it gets that much age on it, you just cut it back and it'll come back out again. And we've struggled a little bit with some aphids inside as well on these, and we just keep treating them, and it seems to be working really well. And that could be a little bit of a sign of having the aphids, is just that little bit of a dieback, but the rest of the new growth, as you can tell, is not affected. It's just doing just fine. So got a lot of new spring growth on it. It's ready to start going outside, and that's what we will start doing as soon as it's just a little bit warmer. And our tomato plants and things like that, all of our seedlings and cuttings and things like that are doing fantastic. We got ourselves a little bit of some shamrock for St. Patrick's Day, and it's kind of a learning curve for me. I've never really grown shamrock before inside, and it's doing fantastic. This is just a little plug. I've got a green one, and then I have a purple one over here as well. And they both have been blooming, so doing quite well. But anyway, we have some new seedlings, of course, our yellow pear tomatoes and all of that, and some of my grandson's basil is still going in those little containers. But look at our tomato plants. Just in the last couple of days, they have really just went nuts. We have not transplanted them out yet and separated them because they've just been doing so good in these little containers. We'll just let them go as long as it can. In fact, we actually had some sprout that had not sprouted previously and had already came up, but they are doing fantastic. We've just been coming in and kind of moving them around, simulating wind and things like that. And the stems on them are actually quite strong. And it's the same situation with all of our tomato plants over here, and even our cabbages and brassicas and stuff like that. They're doing fantastic. And our peppers are really starting to come up now and doing great. And I do have to pause from time to time because I do have my grandson here. He's done his homeschooling for the day, and now he's just waiting for me to get done. We can't really leave him alone for too long because he starts getting into trouble. He's 5, you know. So, and we've got our super sauce tomatoes up here. They looked exactly the same as they did last season, and we had great tomatoes last season. They always get a kind of a little leggy looking, but then they start really, as you can see here, putting on mature growth, and then they straighten back up. So that's kind of their deal, I guess. But they just look amazing. And I don't use any type of grow lights or anything. They're just in a south-facing window. We have a wall of windows here that go all the way to the ceiling, as you can see here, and they just go all the way around. So we have this little growing room over here off of our dining room, and this is where we start our plants. We have shelves here that we get from Uline. My partner has a computer business, so he gets these shelves and things through the computer business, and so he just got me some of those for our growing racks. And we have loads of seedlings here. These are the latest seedlings that we had started, seeds that we have put in, and they have started coming up like crazy, even the tomatoes, and they've only been planted now for about a week at the most. And just look at them. You can see all these little seedlings coming up in there. We have our Oregon spring tomatoes already coming up. We have our red cherry tomatoes, the large ones, already coming up. Our purple broccoli just came up like crazy. And we have seedlings coming up in the tray down at the bottom as well. Looks like our thyme is coming up, as well as peppermint, and all kinds of things just going on in there. So looking really forward to that. So we basically started 2 more trays. We have 4 trays here. One of them is a half tray, so I can start another half tray over here, or maybe even a full tray. I'll just let it kind of hang over so we can get another tray of seedlings started. I'm going to be helping with plant sales and things like that through the Master Gardeners program, and then also giving plants out to the community through some plant groups that I have joined up with. So that's the same thing we did last season, except I didn't do any of the plant sales through the Master Gardeners program. But the only issues that we've had so far with plants coming up is our floss flower. This is the ageratum, I think, or ageratum. That one has not came up as yet, and I'm not sure what the reasoning for that one is. So not real sure with that. It may just take longer. I don't know exactly how long the germination is on that one. And we had a little trouble with our kaleidoscope peppers. They mostly all came up except for this one here. And it may be that I just planted them a little bit too deeply. Not real sure. I usually plant a little bit deeper than what it says, just because I don't want everything just overwhelming. And then we had a little spotty germination on our Savory Perfection cabbage. That's back here. But we have enough of them here. This is just for my personal use, that there'll be enough, so that's fine there. But everything else did fantastic. I had either close to 100% germination, or even in a lot of cases more than 100%, because I don't know if the seed split or what. Just like the case here, I had more tomatoes than I planted. My grandson planted, basically I told him put 4 seeds in each little thing, and in some cases that happened, but in some cases there was way more than that. And you can tell they're so close together that I'm thinking the seed split, because there's more than 4 in each of those little cells, and we'll need to get those separated pretty soon. And I had the same situation happen here, and I know for myself, because I planted these, that I know exactly how many seeds I put in there, and there's way more than that in each one of these. And they look fantastic. These are tomatoes. Again, these are San Marzanos and Super Beefsteak, and we have Kellogg's Breakfast tomatoes back here, and Black Krim and Berkeley Tie-Dye. The Berkeley Tie-Dye didn't do as well for some reason as some of our others, so we do have more of these planted in some of the other containers. So these did not do quite as well, but definitely all of the others, I had more than what I had planted. So I'm gonna have to get in here and really just start separating. I actually had one die here, and I was like, no big deal, because I had more than I planted. I only put 4 seeds in each one of these little cells, and I've ended up with some cases of like 6 or 7 in each of the cells. So I've got way more than what I needed, but I do need to get these separated out pretty soon. I've just been kind of hanging, just fertilizing with water from the bottom, and they're just doing fantastic. They have mature leaves on them. They're doing great, nice growth on them. And once I get these separated out, they're really going to take off, and I know that. So I'm just kind of holding back on it. So anyway, peppers looking amazing. The only issue that I had was with my purple bell peppers, and that was seed that I collected. So that's a possibility that it may have been not quite as mature seeds as they should have been. But I do have some replacement seeds that are actual packages, so I may try that. I had all of my gigantic, it's what they call gigante tomatillos. Those all came up. You can see that there. But I didn't do very many of those because I don't plant a whole lot of tomatillo plants, because you can get so many off of one that you don't need a huge amount. But all of my other peppers did great, except for my Better Bell 3 peppers. And again, these are seeds that I collected. So I think that these, it's just not warm enough yet. They've been a little bit difficult if it's not warm. And same thing with Carabay peppers. I got this Carabay pepper last year from just some peppers that I had purchased at an organic store. And I took a chance on actually saving the seeds. I don't think they're going to do anything, so a little worried about those. But my celery's doing fantastic. It's slow to germinate, but lots and lots and lots of them in there. And looks like we're getting some mature leaves on those now. So I'll need to separate those out and get those off and going good. And I had great germination on my petunias and even the strawberries. They're hard to see, but they're in there. But I had 0 germination on the Montego tomatoes. I'm not real sure why. This was a packet of seeds that I ordered from Etsy. So that's the only package that I've had that completely failed. And I'm going to contact these guys and say, hey, look, this is twice now that I planted these seeds and none of them came up. So they're supposed to be an indoor windowsill variety. So I should not have had any issue with those germinating. And I didn't have any issue with the orange hat tomatoes germinating. They did fantastic. And I've got those in the windows. And they're much larger now. But these did not come up at all. So I'm going to have to replace this with something else and then just contact this Etsy person and say, hey, none of these germinated. And I noticed some reviews on those this year. Some others saying, hey, none of these germinated. But my pansies, fantastic. Look at that. They have some mature leaves on them. And my mints, these are lemon mint. Mature leaves, doing fantastic. In fact, I need to get these transplanted out because you can see some of the extra growth growing on the bottoms of these. And I had lost one right here. And I'm not real sure why that one passed on. But it just did. And that's fine because I actually have two in this one right here. So I'll get one of those transplanted out of there. And got more mountain strawberries over here. I didn't expect fantastic germination on these because, again, I didn't know a whole lot about them. We had just gotten them. So, but a lot of those did come up. They did fantastic. They're still little, but they are up and doing great. And then we've got some lavender in there. Lavender's always a difficult germination. And I did have some lavender that germinated, so we'll do fine on that. The summer savory, I've got new seeds planted in here recently, so not real sure how long it'll take. They are always slow to germinate, and I have problems germinating summer savory, so we'll see. It just may need to be warmer on those. So this is the only tray that I've had a little bit of an issue with. And this one I used a Miracle-Gro potting soil as well because I did not have any of the Master Garden soil at the time. And this is the only one with Miracle-Gro potting soil. But we had stuff germinate and did just fine. And then we didn't on some of it. So maybe that's the issue. Not sure. Anyway, we had plenty of all of the rest of the stuff. And we're still going to be doing more seed trays of squash and things like that when it gets closer to time. So you'll see some of these get switched out once we get those transplanted into some larger containers. And then, of course, the brassica will get planted out of here and straight into soil as soon as we are able to do so and there's not any snow on the ground. So that's what will happen with that. But otherwise, all the plants looking fantastic. We're getting ready for growing season out there, even though it doesn't look like it when you look out these windows. But soil is looking great from before it started snowing. And we have a lot of our containers have already thawed out. They may freeze back tonight, but it'll probably only be a surface freeze. And after that, they will thaw out again. And then we've got lots of cuttings as well that we're getting rooted here. And this is fuchsia that we're doing here as well. So we're just going by leaps and bounds with getting everything ready for our gardening season. You can see the marjoram. We cut all that back pretty recently. And I've had all that dried. And it's already coming out like crazy again. So this will go out in the spring when it's warm enough. And it'll join the lavender and the rosemary and all of that stuff. And we still have plenty of seed trays that we could get started. And I'm contemplating it because we're going to try to knock it out of the park with what we have to do with this season. Even with all of the stuff going on with moving and all of that, we're doing way more than we did last season. So anyway, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell for notices on new videos as they come out. And if you have any questions or anything about getting things started, if you're in the Garden Zone 5A, 5B, let me know and I'll see if I have an answer to your question. And pictures, all kinds of stuff down below and comments. Let's see what all you're doing. Anyway, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. We'll see you in the next one.